Last night I flaked the starter off the parchment because the parchment was acting like a sponge and absorbing the moisture and slowing down the dry. I know this is metal and it reacts, but because this is dry, it's the liquid that would react with the metal. I'm going to get this broken up, but first things first, get Jewel fed. I've got an ounce of each flour and water. .28 grams. I'm going to get them stirred in. I'm going to crush up the dried starter, and I'm going to put it in Mom's upright freezer, just because I prefer the upright because it's not frost free like the one in the refrigerator. Frost freeze, well, I'll go into that someday. But for now, Joel's had breakfast. I'm gonna put this in a bowl and break it up. Last night I started editing the clips that I've made about this so far. I spent around 3 hours, and I got all the clips individually edited, and I've got them separated day by day. Some days there's literally one clip a minute or so. Other days there's several clips for several minutes. I'm not sure yet how I'm going to put it all together, whether I'll do it all as a one video or do day by day video of it. If I did it day by day, I could kind of get ahead, have them posted so that they'll automatically, on a schedule, become public. But I'm not sure what I'm going to do on that yet. This is crushing up, but it's not doing it as well as I'd like. I think I'm going to use wooden spoon. Need a mortar and pestle, and that's one thing that Mom doesn't have. I looked up yesterday when I started drying this, cookistry.com. Donna Curry talked about doing this, and the way that she said to do this, I'm just going to do this to see if this is still active after me attempting this. Said to take about a teaspoon of the dry, and I think I'm getting this right, a tablespoon of water, and let that sit, and it should start bubbling, and then within a few hours I could probably feed it. I'm going to finish up on that, let this sit, and see how things look in an hour or two. I used a wooden spoon and the bowl as a mortar and pestle, and then I actually used it again in the small jar here. Got about half a jar full. This is a 4-ounce jelly jar. I'm getting ready to put this in the freezer. I just thought I'd show how much I did. Liquid, it would probably have almost filled this, but now that it's dry, it's only about half. I checked on Gem in the fridge. They're doing well, even being in the fridge. I fed them last night before I put them in. They're not growing as much. The feeding has slowed down because of the cooler temperatures. The bacteria isn't as active. So I'm going to put it in the pint jar instead of the quart jar, just to make it easier in the fridge. And I may separate off a little bit of the original and Jewel and feed it heavy for the biscuits tomorrow. I'm not sure yet when I'm going to do that. Okay, that wasn't a real pleasant experience. I'm going to do this with my right hand. Again, it's that waste not, want not school of thought. There's no point in wasting this, even if all it is flour and water. It's still a commodity if you don't have it. A lot of times growing up, we didn't have a lot, and I remember Mom having the basics: flour, sugar, salt, baking powder, baking soda, vinegar, and she made a lot of wonderful things with just those simple basics. And whatever fruit or vegetables we had from our yards. We moved a lot, so that was probably part of it. But actually, maybe after I get these biscuits done, Jewel will go into a pint jar and go in the fridge as well. Something that I've been researching for a while, and I'm going to continue to research a bit. Hickory Farms does a sweet hot mustard that my mom says tastes just like the mustard that her grandma used to make. She says that her grandmother only made enough for what they were going to use. So I'm going to try to research mustards. I've actually been researching them for quite a while, to try to come up with a small batch recipe, egg-free, to make mustard. This lid is on, but it's not on tight, so that any gases that are created can get out. But we're definitely smaller. We'll have to check in a few days and see if any hooch starts developing on the top here. For now, I'm going to wash my hands and then put her back in the fridge. I just went online and rechecked this on cookistry.com, and on hers it says when you're rehydrating the dry, after it's hydrated, which it is now, to go ahead and add about a tablespoon of flour to feed it, and then we wait for it to start bubbling to show us that it's back to an active. I'm going to stir this up and give it a few hours, or up to that full day like she mentions on the website. Can definitely smell the start, so we know it's active. Or I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I did notice I've been smelling this dry start ever since I started drying it until this morning when it was dry. but I smelled it. Just gonna cover this and see how it goes. This is the starter that I reconstituted from what I dried. I just barely gave it just a little bit of flour on a end of a spoon and stirred it, and a bit ago there were bigger bubbles than there are now. But I think I'm going to feed it and see how it looks. It's been about three and a half hours since I reconstituted it, and I believe it's definitely showing some activity. So I'm going to feed it and see if we can get some more. I've got an ounce of flour and water here that I'm going to put in it, stir it up, go from there. This is looking a little bit dry, at least to me, and that's admittedly an inexperienced eye. But I'm going to put just a few drops more water in. Okay, this is the cap from the water bottle I'm using, and that's the water I'm putting in, just that little amount there, which is actually quite a bit to look at. Thanks for watching Perhaps Cooking. Feel free to share, give me a thumbs up, or subscribe.